Good afternoon, class. How are you today? Welcome to PE in Health subject. So, our learning competency for today's lesson is about identify school and community resources in case of injury or emergency. So, the lesson that we are going to discuss this morning is about first aid. Do you have any idea what is first aid? Looking back to your lesson, so as you participate in physical activities, whether in school or in the community, it is good practice to know your school and community resources in case of injury or emergency. Being familiar with it makes response to injuries or emergencies more immediate and efficient, thus lessening the severity of the injury or emergency. So resources refer to the supplies, equipment, facilities, and services that can be utilized in case of sports or fitness related injury or emergency. So they include both material and human resources such as safety supplies, equipment, facilities, qualified and trained emergency personnel, as well as the standard protocols set for such situations. When we say emergency response, it begins with the preparation of both equipment and personnel. When these have been prepared adequately, the school and community are deemed ready for an injury or emergency. It is important that you are able to identify these resources so that injuries or emergencies will be addressed immediately and efficiently. Now, let's proceed to the first aid kit. First aid is the immediate care given to a person who has been injured or suddenly become ill. First aid deals with self-help and proper home care, especially if medical assistance is not immediately available. The goal of first aid is to alleviate suffering, prevent added or further injury or danger, and prolong life. So the goal of first aid, remember, is to alleviate suffering, prevent or further injury or danger, and prolong life. The first aid kit is a set of supplies and equipment used to administer first aid. In your school and community, first aid kits should be available, visible, and readily accessible in case of injuries or emergencies. It should also be regularly checked for completeness and freshness of supplies. The usual supplies found in a first aid kit include the following. First, we have the triangular bandage. A triangular bandage is used as an arm sling or as a pad to control bleeding. It may also be used to support or immobilize an injury to a bone or joint or as improvised padding over a painful injury. So remember, the use of the triangular bandage is an arm sling or as a pad to control bleeding. Next, we have the gloves. So medical gloves are examples of personal protective equipment that are used to protect the wearer and or the patient from the spread of an infection or illness during medical procedures and examinations. Medical gloves are one part of an infection control strategy. Next, we have tongue depressor. So a tongue depressor, or sometimes called spatula, is a tool used in medical practice to depress the tongue to allow for examination of the mouth and throat. Gauze. So gauze can be used for cleansing, packing, scrubbing, covering, and securing in a variety of wounds. Closely woven gauze is best for extra strength or greater protection, while opened or loose weave is better for absorbency or drainage. Wound dressings. So, wound dressings is anything that is used in direct contact with the wound to help it heal and prevent further issues or complications. Next, we have cotton. So, cotton, they are ideal for medical use, including cleaning cuts and scrapes or applying creams and ointments to minor injuries. Next, we have the adhesive tape. So, adhesive tape is used to hold gauze pads and bandages over wounds to keep them clean and prevent infection. Tape can become damaged or come loose if it is exposed to water, chemicals, or perspiration. Next, we have the rubbing alcohol. So, rubbing alcohol can be used to clean utensils in your first aid kit. It is very effectively clean cuts, scrapes, and minor wounds. Antibacterial, antiseptic lotions and ointments should be added to your homemade kit as well. Next, we have the iodine. First aid antiseptic and germicide to help prevent infection in minor cuts, scrapes, and burns. Povidone iodine is a broad-range antimicrobial that kills bacteria, fungi, viruses, protozoa, and yeast. Next, we have the swabs. So swabs, commonly called cotton swabs. Applicators can also be used to clean the area surrounding a wound. Scissors. So scissors are essential item to have in any first aid kit. So these scissors can be used to cut bandages, to fit wounds, and help remove dressing so bandages can be changed, reducing the risk of infection. Pen light. So the use of pen light is to examine eyes, ears, and throat with the pinpoint beam of this high-intensity pen light. These pen lights fit easily into our first aid kits and are useful to have in case of any first aid emergency. Forceps. So Forceps will assist you in helping others through serious trauma or other injuries. Other equipments that should be included to aid in first aid are the following. First, we have the spine board. So what is the use of the spine board? So a spinal board is a patient handling device used primarily in pre-hospital trauma care. So it is designed to provide rigid support during movement of a person with suspected spinal or limb injuries. So they are most commonly used by ambulance staff as well as lifeguards and ski patrollers. Next, we have the sets of splints. So what is the use of sets of splints? So for instance, a splint can be used for certain fractures, soft tissue sprains, tendon injuries, or injuries awaiting orthopedic treatment. So a splint may be static, not allowing motion, or dynamic, allowing controlled motion. Splits can also be used to relieve pain in damaged joints. Next, we have the wheelchair. So what is the use of wheelchair? So wheelchair is one of the most commonly used assistive devices to promote mobility and enhance quality of life for people who have difficulties in walking. Next, we have the blankets or the first aid blankets. So what is the use of the blankets? So emergency blankets are used to prevent heat loss in your body caused by thermal radiation, water evaporation, and convection. You may also have also heard them referred to as a first aid blanket, space blanket, Mylar thermal, or weather blankets. Next, we have the short board or Kendrix extrication device. So, what is the use of short board or Kendrix extrication device? So, this device is used in vehicle extrication to remove victims of traffic collisions from motor vehicles. So commonly carried on ambulances, the KED or Kendrix extrication device is typically applied by an emergency medical technician, paramedic, or another first aid responder. Next, we have the pulse or first aid pulse, or it can be also called emergency pulse stretchers. So, it is used as lightweight, high strength emergency stretchers suitable for first aid response, industrial sites, and casualty rooms. The first aid kit is usually located in strategic places in school like the clinic, gym, playground, and security stations. In the community, first aid kits should be in the community centers like community hall or office and recreation centers. So it is advisable that a signage be placed where the first aid kit and equipment are located. This can either be attached to a wall or post or suspended. Schools and the community or in any other institution, the presence of first aid kits, emergency numbers and phones, and equipment should not be the end of their emergency response. So they should set procedures on how to respond to injuries or emergencies. So these procedures are standard ways of responding to emergencies. These procedures make up what is called an Emergency Action Plan or EAP. So it is a plan developed for immediate implementation whenever the need arises, providing appropriate standards of emergency care to all present. The EAP or the Emergency Action Plan usually include the following. First, we have the emergency personnel. So emergency personnel, so detailed first aid arrangements for on-site emergencies may consist of teachers, physicians, and nurses, athletic coaches, security, and maintenance personnel. For schools, or community leaders, homeowners association, president, uh, president or the community. So that is emergency personnel. It involves the teachers, physicians, nurses, athletic coaches, security and maintenance personnel for schools or community leaders, homeowners association president, and others. Next, we have the emergency communication. So, emergency numbers, phones, TOA radio, public announcement system. So, emergency communication, it involves the phone numbers, TOA radio, public announcement, and other way of communication. Next, we have the emergency equipment. So when we say emergency equipment, it involves first aid kit, wheelchair, spine board, stretcher, blankets, poles, and other first aid equipments or other medical equipments. Next, we have the medical transportation. So confirmation of local ambulance, basic life support, and others. So non-medical transportation. So it involves wheelchairs, stretchers, and others. Next, we have the emergency contact list. So clinic, local hospital. So we need to have a emergency contact list to our clinic, to our local hospital. Then next we have the venue information. For example, the transportation, identified entrance, exits, and access routes. School personnel, example teachers, security and maintenance personnel, and community leaders know, understand, and follow these procedures every time an emergency happens because it is standardized. These procedures are usually laid out in writing so that personnel crucial in the emergency response are notified and that immediate attention is given. In the community, it is advisable to form a community emergency response team, which will be the emergency personnel in your EAP or emergency action plan. It is advisable that the members of the community know who forms this emergency response team. You may not know all the procedures of your school and community on responding to emergencies. However, what is important is you know who to notify in case an emergency happens. So the most immediate personnel you need to notify in case you are in your school, especially in the gym, are the PE teachers or any teacher present, maintenance personnel, or security personnel. So that's all for our lesson this afternoon. Do you have any questions? If none, let's proceed to your activity and to your quiz. So for your activity and for your quiz, just follow the GAITF link on your screen. And if you have any more questions about the lesson, that we have been discussed this morning, just contact me and my number 095505230997. Goodbye and have a nice day.